off the shelf. They're not. Of course, at home we got Sandra's donuts. That's what they made. But I known that, I'd have brought him some. Yeah.
So, one of your kids buy that old barn house up
Yeah,
on
bought the
20?
whole thing and
The house too?
They
Or?
sold the house.
But they bought it all together and
Yeah,
then
they
sold it
took,
all?
I think the 7 acres and they divided it some weird way because now they own behind the house along them pines all
I
out.
saw, well, I turned the corner there and I go, they stopped mowing right here and there's this strip that's like this.
These people that they sold to are from Florida, a couple of young kids wanted to come move to Indiana because of the snow. Need to go a little bit further north if you need very much snow.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's holding things up.
Who's holding things up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I see. Oh. That's the day
There's
after.
always somebody in the.
Well, I saw you up
in
there
the chain
mowing.
there.
Oh, it's been a week or 10
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, gotcha. Oh, let's see.
Sorry.
You're fine. We'll forgive you.
Hey, I can't get Alan to seem to want to look at it.
No.
Take a look, take a look. I have this thing with Steve Yeah, I actually got 2 of my fingers caught when I was a young woman. I worked at a yeah. And now, any kind of finger injuries just gone nicely. I get that squeeze me over throw up feeling. So yeah, I was brave though. I looked. Trying to get over that, but
Looks like we got clerk next time. Number 5.
I assume the coroner's next.
I mean, I still have my fingers, but they're sort of funny looking.
Oh no, I forgot about her.
You can try dynamite cap.
Hey.
Clerk and then
nice.
commissioner, then
Dynamite cap.
Really?
I know Dad lost these 2 at a corn shelter. I was a kid. We were messing around. It was around the 4th of July. We thought they were firecrackers.
Is that what happened to you? I never knew that.
Yeah.
It was firecrackers?
Yeah. It looks beautiful.
Dynamite.
I could have peeled it over and seen the different bone there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Mine is just pretty well disintegrated.
I'm sure. Yeah, well, talk with Joe Sheets. You know Joe Sheets.
Yeah.
Nobody has so far.
They can't, well, they can't, I don't know, I assume,
Okay. Is that what everyone else has been doing?
no, the judges will sit there.
Maybe what they want.
The only one really, just during the regular meeting, and then I see the light wasn't on, so they probably wasn't transmitting.
Oh, God. She let me
We're
hear
gonna try to
about
do this on
it. Years. Your
broadcast,
hands
so
were
we
so
have to use the
beautiful.
microphone for the people to hear.
Yeah. no.
Okay,
You're
well,
copyrighted.
let's reconvene the budget hearing, and we left off ready to tackle the clerk's budget,
Woohoo!
which is tab number 5. I can do this without spilling.
Do you have my severance package ready? I guess
Such a
that's a
sense
no.
of humor.
I thought I'd try.
Let's begin with the clerk of circuit court budget, the
Okay.
regular budget.
Alrighty.
We did make a couple of adjustments there in, just to review in August that I think we had talked through, and I have them already in pen in my book, but we we had reduced the office repair line item down to 0 and increased the service agreement line item back up to 5,500 because you had reported that's what it needed to be for 2023. And then we also offset, reduced meals and lodging from 4,000 to 3,500. So net result was we kept the budget the same, but we put it where you needed it to be in terms of the service agreement.
Okay, meals and lodging too, what was that?
3,500.
35.
So we took 500 out there
Sure.
and the 1,000 out from the miscellaneous office repair and put that 1,500 into the service agreement line
Okay.
so that you had enough for that contract agreement.
Alrighty. I'm good with that.
Did anybody else have any other notes or items that?
That's how I have it.
The only other one I had highlighted, and I know you talked about this a little bit, but I'll bring it up again just if there's any wiggle room, was in the office supplies.
You know, office supplies, considering next year, there could be a little wiggle room on that.
We've never gone over 9, so I just wondered if we could move it down to 10.
Yeah, I think that'd be okay to move it down to 10. The year after that, however, I would think that might want to go up a little bit, so you might expect that.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts on the regular clerk budget? Okay, election board. I had highlighted, Ray, the publication of legal notices went up a lot, but I couldn't remember if you had talked to that.
That really needed to go up.
Okay,
And honestly, considering the trend, the way that things are going, I'm hoping this amount will cover it. I know that this year, I'm going to have to borrow, I'm gonna have to transfer money from somewhere. It took majority of my budget this year just to pay for the Springs,
okay,
advertisement of our election. We have to advertise the election,
is
in
that
the
for
spring.
locations and timing of
Publication,
voting and all
yeah,
that?
publication in the spring and in the fall.
Okay.
And it just took everything. I was kind of blown away with that because their prices obviously have increased. So be aware that she might have to ask for more next year, but I'm hoping that this will cover those expenses.
Okay, okay. The only other one I had highlighted was the poll pads, the new iPads and cases, and I mentioned in August, and having reviewed it, I feel like we can do this. I think we could pull that out of this budget and put it in our cum cap budget for capital purchases. I think that makes more sense.
Okay.
And keep it out of county general.
Okay.
My question to you would be, since we're gonna have to advertise that, it wasn't included in the original advertisement, we're gonna have to do an additional appropriation for that anyway. In talking to Tim, his feeling was that you had talked about maybe adding a second set so that on that early voting ends and having to get them
Right.
everything done and back for
Right.
regular voting on Tuesday. His thinking was we didn't really use that many for early voting. It was usually here. Could we accomplish the same purpose by having, say, 15 instead of 13, and you just had like the 2 that were here could be replaced with new ones for election day?
We don't necessarily use them here, and we only use a couple here. The whole thought process is though, and we're not gonna use that many next year, but the year after, we're going to use a tremendous amount. And that's
What
what
changes the year after?
the amount of people that will be voting and the amount of,
Oh, you mean for the presidential election?
right, and the
I got it.
amount of vote centers that will have open and the amount of days that will have them open. Because during a presidential election, we're gonna add at least another vote center, and we're going to have them open, during the primary and the general election, more days during absentee voting, and we'll have pretty much we'll have all of the vote centers open during that time frame. Whereas this year and next year, we're only required to have one additional satellite vote center open, and the the courthouse open those two Saturdays before. We'll load up
Okay,
during the general election.
okay, that makes
So,
sense.
yeah, so we have to quarantine our machines. We have to have like, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna say that, that's so inappropriate. But we have to quarantine those things. We have to have 2 sets of machines because our absentees have to be quarantined. So it's kind of like with those also. But then we bring them back, and the only time that we can get those back is Saturday, after, that last Saturday after voting is finished. Then we have to really hurry up and try to get those things all cleared up, redone, reprogrammed, and back out the door.
I'm gonna go into a gray area here, but tell me if you think this could work. It would, because that is capturing a vote on those iPads,
iPads don't capture votes.
okay, what are they doing?
Those are our poll books. So those check people in.
Okay, so it's, I'm wondering, can that be used from the records perpetuation fund?
No, records perpetuation are for court records, clerk's records, those sorts of things. We can't use it for election things.
The voter rolls would be considered a record, right?
They're election things. That's a whole separate umbrella.
I tried.
You tried. It's a good try.
Okay.
However, well, we'll talk about this in a minute. Hang on.
Okay.
I have an addendum for you.
Well, so I'm suggesting we pull that out of this budget and move it to cum cap. We've got a little room to wiggle in cum cap. So I would zero it in this budget. If our ultimate goal is for the 24 election,
Yeah.
we can talk about it, but maybe we try to do part of them in the 23 budget and the rest of them in the 24 budget or something.
Or, do what we did in the past when we have that off year, budget for those during that off year.
If you had to get through the 24 budget without having the second set,
I mean, it can be done, it's just not real fun. We've done it in the past.
okay.
Will we be able to put that in since we took 20,000 out?
Well, we didn't, we just moved it. We made that 120.
This would have to be an
Oh.
additional
This-
appropriation.
Yeah.
All right, so you're got it on that list.
I think that's the first one we've got, isn't it? Yeah. You have $2,000 in there for vote center equipment. Do you have a purpose for that, or is that just a placeholder in case something comes
It's a
up?
placeholder. Yeah.
Okay.
Just in case something breaks kind of last minute and we need to get something really quickly.
Okay. Anything else on election board? Registration of voter. I assume the micro vote's sort of our annual,
Annual contract,
contract
service
fee,
fees,
yeah.
yeah.
okay.
It's no wiggle room there.
Same thing with no ink,
Correct.
yep. Kind of nothing to see there. And then we have on the records perpetuation, we just kind of put that placeholder in there for the extra labor to have something
You
in
know
place.
what? And, now there was my addendum.
Oh,
I
okay.
just went last week to a Northern District Clerks Conference, and Amy Christensen from the Indiana Archives Records Association was there, speaking about, obviously, records perpetuation.
Mm-hmm.
And a question came up regarding microfilm, scanning, that sort of thing. And she let us know that microfilm still is the standard for all of our permanent and critical storage that we need to keep. That has not been happening. Of course, the county doesn't have a microfilm department anymore. My predecessor had been using a company that was microfilming our records, any that were critical and permanent that we had to keep. Now, we have been scanning our records for years, and we continue to scan today. When we went to Odyssey, which was January of my first term, which was a state system, presuming that at that point that all of our records were secure because they're taking our records and they're storing them, you know, on an offsite server, that was secure and that was what we needed to do. That's not so. So the records that need to be maintained at the state level still need to go back and have those microfilmed and sent to the state for them to maintain. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, it doesn't have to happen ASAP, but in the next year or so, a vendor will have to be contracted, and that will have to happen. So
This
that
would be in addition to digitization of the record?
Yep.
That seems a little repetitive and unnecessary.
Pardon?
That seems repetitive and unnecessary.
It does seem repetitive and unnecessary, but that's what the state says.
Okay?
So, it's not absolutely every record. And yeah, I thought it was kind of crazy because, especially now that we're pretty much paperless, most of our pretty much all of our court records are emailed, but then those are going to have to be microfilmed.
So you're gonna have to print them out?
You know what? That would be up for a vendor to do. They would have to go in there and pull those, however they do, and microfilm those things, and then they would give us a roll, and then we would send those to the state. Or, you know, the state has a program. I've heard the state's program is not really great, but, you know, it is what it is. So much a page, so much a document. Lots of vendors out there.
So were you going to the point of saying that maybe we don't have this as extra labor, we have this as microfilm, this 20,000? Since we haven't really been using it as extra labor in the records perpetuation?
Well, we can use that records perpetuation to pay for that.
Well, that's what I mean. So are
Yeah.
you saying that we should have it in the budget as microfilm scanning or?
I mean, I have a person scanning who scans, you know, everything that we have.
But us pay,
But
If we're
yeah,
gonna have to hire a
you're
vendor-
gonna have to hire, well, somebody's gonna have to hire someone at some point here in the next year or two to get these things microfilmed. Yeah. The clerk can use that records perpetuation. It wouldn't be a good idea to use the whole amount because we don't have the income coming in anymore to go into that records perpetuation to bump it up and add to it as
Why
in the
not?
past. Because we're pretty much paperless now, and because of Odyssey and the My Case functionality the state has put out there, people can go ahead and they can get their records
okay.
online, so we don't have people coming in anymore getting the volume of copies that they wanted that we would charge for. So it's just not there. The income is just not there for that.
The balance right now is 171,000.
Yeah, but it's gonna cost a lot. It's gonna cost more than that.
But they need to know how much is in there.
I mean, a good amount can be spent towards it from the records perpetuation, and it can be split up over time. It doesn't all have to be done at once, and the vendors will work for you. I had gotten some estimates this year from 2 or 3 of them, but my goal was different. And they were close to the $500,000 range for my estimate, but it was completely different goal of what I was wanting to do. So the estimate would be smaller, and you could cut it up, obviously, over several different years.
So we were microfilming up till January when you took, is that correct?
No,
No.
Microfilming hasn't been done for several years. Several years. No, I would say 8 to 9 years. Probably. Now, I don't know about any other offices.
And well, to follow up on John's question, did we stop because we thought that the scanning was sufficient? That was our understanding?
I assume so. The previous clerk stopped, cut ties with the company that we're using. I know that there was a problem with that company, the way that they were scanning and microfilming our records at the time. And there was an argument between the clerk and the company. I wasn't really privy to all of that information, so I don't remember the whole scenario, but it was several years ago that happened. And another company was not hired to do those things. When we went to Odyssey, pretty much it was the clerk's understanding that the state, that was
Well,
okay.
I wanna approach this more holistically, and if it requires working with the state, I don't want, if we're gonna spend six-figure money, I don't wanna do it in 1960s technology.
Oh, no,
I
absolutely
wanna
not.
digitize it and scan it and have it on a hard drive, on a server somewhere.
Well, you know.
But we need to work with the state to make sure that
Sure.
that's acceptable.
Sure. Amy Christensen is the person that I have talked to, and she's the county liaison for the IARA. Now, she doesn't do necessarily the court records. She does everything else. Tom Jones is the beginning and ending at the state level for archives for the court side. What really needs to happen is he needs to come in and he needs to look at the situation, or at the worst case scenario, he needs to talk to someone. And he needs to kind of give an assessment of what exactly needs to happen.
Okay, just to maybe cycle back to the budget then, was there anything here you wanted, that's good information, I'm glad you told us and gave us the heads up, but there's no change you want to make to the budget at the moment?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I just wanted you to be aware of that's needs to happen. That needs to, you need to start thinking about that. Now, I don't know how this applies to other offices. I have no idea whether other offices are having their things, if they've continued a microfilm project. I always want to say microfilm, sorry. A microfilm project or not. I don't know. Maybe they have.
Do you mean other offices in Clinton County or other clerks' offices in the
Other
state?
offices in Clinton County.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly applies to them. Every office has a record retention schedule. But that's not my bailiwick.
Right. Okay, I appreciate the heads up.
Sure, no problem. I always like to make your day.
Just so everybody knows, we have been working shortly with, the last 2 months, a company out of Kirkland that specializes in digitization and putting stuff on a hard drive and actually going back on the old records and scanning and getting those in. And at the same time, this company and their professionals, they've done it for other states, but they're in Kirkland. And it just so happens I've kind of worked with Brett a little bit. This company's come in and given some ideas and so forth. It appears like they're going to be worthwhile to maybe discuss with later to doing this. We're still in the testing state, but they're able to go back and do the old stuff, but at the same time go on the new stuff. And then obviously, those records that people are requesting, there'll be a charge that they could set up and get into our computer and do rather than wasting time with our staff. The vision is that happens in many departments, but at this point in time, we're still looking to make sure that it will work and do well. And at this point, from what I have seen, they're spot on. It'll be excellent to have. So, but again, this is just in the planning stage. We've not gotten to the place where we can come to you and say, here's what we can do and so forth. So, Brett, if you want to add anything to that comment, I'd be open.
I just can't say enough good things. This document out of Kirkland
I know, that's the way I feel.
Okay, the state does want us to live in microfilm land with our critical and permanent records. That's where we are. Not with all of them, but the critical and permanent records, microfilm is the standard.
Yeah, that's work in progress is what it amounts to, so, hopefully we can present something in the near future that actually works, not only for the stakes, and I think they will, but,
I guess it just feels like this is a bigger discussion than just, it's a.
Now,
Yeah.
I had, and I don't remember I don't know if I brought it to the council, but I did bring it to the commissioners. We weren't able to come to any kind of agreement with it because the price was so exorbitant. But with these companies that I had worked with, is exactly what he was talking about, and we could have broken it down by section, by department, however I wanted to do it. Same thing, and that was my ultimate goal, was to take pretty much everything that I had so that we could start getting rid of some of those records, obviously get rid of those records out in the hallway, start destroying what we can destroy, and get rid of those things that are not archival quality, that are not critical and permanent records that we have to keep out of the attic, and start moving some of those things, was to get those things digitized, get them on an external hard drive, get them on a computer program that will be on all the girls' desktops, so that when a person calls in, emails in, requests a copy of something, they can do that online. We can go ahead and shoot it out to them. They pay for it online, actually coming up to the 21st century, so that we can take care of those things online. It's an all-inclusive package. So they went through everything that we had, and they gave me an all-inclusive price with things broken down. So, I've been there, I've done that. So the cost is there, and I actually had a vendor talking to me saying, hey, can we still get something done for Clinton County? Like, well, you know what? I have 1 foot out the door. That's something that you might want to speak to the next clerk about. I don't really think I have time right now to do something with you, and I don't have the money to do
Well,
it.
and I guess what I'm saying is that I think that this is a problem that's not limited to your department, and so there's probably an economy of scale that we could get by dealing with it countywide rather than department by department. Even though you make a good point that each has their own retention policy.
Right.
Okay.
But again, I think personally, I think the need is there to have a program like he has. If this company, I'm sure it's great. I always try to use companies that are local, homegrown. If they're not ready to go yet, there are other companies that have already given us quotes. They've been doing this for years. They're ready to go. They're ready to do business. And you could break it down however you want. You can start small, go big, however you want to do it. Keep in mind, though, that was an all-inclusive. That's going to scan everything. They can also microfilm. They can do that for you also. So you can do kind of whatever you want to do. And the state can microfilm for you. You've got lots of options out there. I just don't know that I have time right now to take care of it, and I certainly don't have that kind of money in my budget to do it.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
And it's your critical and your permanent records that absolutely positively have to be microfilmed, not the other things. The other things are incredibly convenient to have digitized and put on an external hard drive. Sorry to be a bummer.
Yeah, well, this idea of digitization or scanning records has been on the agenda since I started in 2007, and you've done it too. We Band-Aid it to do whatever the next emergency is, and
We've scanned for years, and we continue to scan. We continue to scan our records. We continue to go back and scan all of our old records that don't have a place in Odyssey, because it will only go back so far. So we continue to scan those records into Odyssey, giving them cause numbers that will fit into there, but they're just not microfilmed. All right,
Okay.
anything else?
no, anything for Ray? Thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy.
Okay. Yes.
Joe had wanted to introduce his part-time person to you. He's here to do that.
Joe, why don't we just work that in here real quick, if you want to come on up.
I know when I was at my first meeting, you guys really beat me up bad. At that meeting, you asked me to bring back my part-time person today. I'd like for John to come over here with me. This is John Large. I think a lot of you guys know him. He's been helping me out, and he's very qualified to be able to step up at some point and take my place. Well, I don't know if anybody could ever take my place, but to be able to fill that position. He does qualify by the state standards. He is a Purple Heart veteran. He was in the Navy. Was that the Navy or the Girl Scouts?
Oh, my goodness.
CB. He,
CBs,
C-
that's the men's department.
department. That's what
The
they are.
road so he can
But
go in.
I'd like you guys to meet him. I'll turn the microphone over to him and I'll get out of the way.
Some of you I know, some of you I know when I was young. Sorry about that, Mike. Joe. Retired car business, 35 years. Really enjoy doing the veteran thing. Really have time now. Never had time, like a lot of you work 12 hours a day. Yeah. Now I have time and I really enjoy it. Taking Joe's place would be pretty hard to do. He's very well qualified. We had talked about this before, maybe working part-time. It's easier to learn. There's a lot to learn. People think, oh, there's a lot to learn. You're dealing with the VA, which is difficult to start off with. Just thought it'd be a good fit for me. Lived there my whole life. Married 56 years. God bless her. And that's about enough. We have 2 children. One works for the city. Code enforcement. Some of you might know him, Jay. I guess that's me. If you need to ask me anything, Jay, anybody.
Great. We're so thrilled you're willing to take on the challenge.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm excited about it. I'll try to carry on what he's built. I don't think you understand. Maybe you do. Guys from all over the state, when they run into a problem with the VA, that's who they call. You get that over 15, 16 years. You can't. So I'll try to follow as best as I can and continue on with what he does.
You said your service was with, I'm sure it wasn't the Girl Scouts like you said.
No, man. CBs, 301st CBs, construction outfit. No, I've never been on a boat, and I've never seen one, don't know nothing about it, we were attached to the 1st Battalion, 12th Marines, that's who we were with, so. I know some other people have been, Michael did, so that's where I was. Stood up when I shouldn't have, sit down. That's why the Purple Heart thing. Of all medals, I get the one nobody wants, so thank you for your time. I know you guys are busy, and I appreciate you listening to me. Any questions, give me a call, let me know, or let you know. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, John.
I did want to say one thing.
Sure.
I sent John a little email here about a week or 2 ago, and they say the Marines guard the gates to heaven. And in that little thing I sent to John, it says, well, the CBs built the roads and the gates to get there.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I'm going to go, Ed, if you want to come on up and we'll review the coroner's budget. Ed was the other, if you'll recall, that we couldn't talk with Liz last time, and Ed was out of town last time as well. So this is really Ed's first time to.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was at a fire investigation training, fire fatality investigation training.
So, how we've done it in the past is, give you the opportunity to speak to anything that's a change or something you want to make sure the council takes note of. So if there's anything you want to bring to our attention.
Just a couple things. Of course, the salary increase. Alan, you and I have discussed the deputy coroner's role and
Yes.
salary. I've discussed it with them, and where it's at right now at the 250 a call, that is fine.
Okay.
Everyone is okay with that, so I say
And
we
I'll interrupt you, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but to go back, that number came as a result of the salary survey that was done, and we had been at 150, and the salary survey showed 250, so we moved to be consistent with how we've handled other positions, moved that to 250. Okay, go ahead.
So that was an increase there for the deputy coroner's portions of stuff. I increased that to $10,000 just to be able to cover that. I don't foresee using all that, but just in case, just the way our caseload has increased dramatically this year. Clothing allowance, that's the same. On the budget status I do have a couple more bills I was discussing back there with Marcia that I'm going to be turning in for some clothing for the deputies. Body bags and gloves, that I raised that by $500 just because of the price increase with everything that's going on. The gas, oil, and lube, I dropped that by $500. I've got a couple emails about fuel usage. Does that have to stay in there, or is that just a set amount?
So I'm looking at it right here. There's a contract amount for the coroner's department where we went back and tracked, because you all have a card. And so the contract amount for coroner's budget for '23 is 200 gallons. And that totals up at the contract price to a total of $762.
Okay.
So I was gonna suggest that we move that gas, oil, and lube down to 1,000.
That's
Because that'd give you enough for that and some oil changes and.
Yeah, because we have no take-home vehicle or anything.
Yeah.
Everyone drives their personal vehicle to the office, gets the transport, and then goes to the scene.
So the 02062 gas, oil, and lube that was requested at 2,000, I think we can safely put it in at 1,000, if you want to make that change.
That was one of the questions I
Yeah.
had in regards to that fuel contract thing.
And if you need to see that, Jerry has those contracts. When she gets back, you could just call over and get a copy of it if you needed to.
All right, thank you.
Just curious, hang on, my cough drop got stuck. Which clothing allowance line is the appropriate one, Britt? Is it 01 or 02?
Yeah, that's true.
It's 02.
Okay.
It's 02.
Well,
That's
we've
my-
got
Okay,
the
so-
numbers in the wrong place.
Yeah, let's.
One would be
Yeah, so let's move, good catch, Clark. Let's move that down. In your budget book, the line that has it in it for '23, let's move that down to the 020018. Get it in the right spot.
Office supplies, I increased that by $200. I mean, with the new morgue facility, got to have some more supplies. The body bags and gloves, I think I went through, raised that by $500, just because of the price increase. Autopsies and toxicology, I increased that by $5,000. This year, we've had 20 autopsies so far, and that, I mean, that's in our new facility.
How much do you suppose that saved us to have our
I
own
have
morgue to
that.
do that?
I have that. We were paying $350 a autopsy for a facility use fee to Tippecanoe County. With 20 autopsy, that's a savings of $7,000 already.
Yeah.
And also with that, we had to pay $100 on top of that for a facility use fee, or access fee. So that's $2,000. So as of today, since our morgue is open, we've saved $9,000.
That's great.
So
Have we been able to, are we gonna be able to use our facility and charge like?
yes, absolutely. I've had meetings with Boone County Coroner, Justin Sparks, and we're in the process right now of putting together a memorandum of understanding. Like if we, I hope, knock on wood, God forbid, we have a mass fatality or something like that, and we need to utilize each other's facilities. We're gonna have that in writing, which once we get that all complete, I'm gonna bring it to the commissioners, get it approved, then bring it to the council and let you see it too. And it'll have what we're gonna charge and what they would charge if we have to use each other's facility. Same thing with Carroll County, with Kristanini. So yes.
Is Carroll currently going to Tippecanoe?
Carroll,
Carroll.
or Chris, yes, Kristen is still going to Tippecanoe, and sometimes White.
Okay.
She hasn't had anything on the southern portion of Carroll County yet to bring it to our facility.
Okay.
But she has come, she's checked the facility out, really likes it, and yes, she will use it.
Okay.
So the autopsies have been raised, $5,000. Corner transports, that is for if we're busy and we have to use a local funeral home or a removal service. I hate to say this, but it seems like here in Clinton County, we've been hit with multiple fatalities at once. It seems like people want to die in twos and only have one cot. So I have to utilize another service to come in to make that removal.
Okay.
Mileage is the same. Stationary and printing, you're going to see that I took that to 0. I do all our own letterhead and all that stuff. So I took that to 0. Photos and blueprints, raised that by $800, just the increase of ink and everything for pictures. Vehicle repairs the same. A new one that's added here in the 030052, biohazard removal. With the morgue and
Yeah.
with autopsies, we have to have someone to get rid of our biohazard waste. So I had done some research, and Sharps is the company that's been doing it, and it's like $40 a month. They come once a month. Everything's in a biohazard tub, and they make the removal, and they leave me a new bin.
Okay.
They also get rid of our Sharps too, so.
Okay.
And the morgue security monitoring system, we do have a security system in there, and we need to, that 400 is to maintain that monitoring fee for the morgue.
Say that one again. What's the number?
That one is 030053.
Oh,
Under debt service.
maintenance agreement. Okay, maintenance. Okay, that's why I
Yeah,
was
ma-
confused.
sorry.
Okay,
I was looking at the bottom too.
yeah. Okay,
Then the dues and subscriptions, that's the same, I believe. That's just for association dues, Indiana State Coroners Association dues. And also, I wanted to go back to the autopsy thing real quick. And the reason for the $5,000 increase. We still have to abide by the Indiana law 36-2-1420, which if an incident occurs in this county and they're transported out, the county where the incident occurred has to pay for the autopsy. We've been going back and forth with Tippecanoe County with that. I'm arguing with them because one person actually drove themselves to Tippecanoe County and then ended up passing away in Tippecanoe County, and they sent me a bill. So that's part of the reason why I've raised that. And we're not sure of the status of that right now. I don't think our county should have to pay for someone that drove themselves. And if an ambulance responded and transported them, absolutely. Then this statute would fall into place. But if they drove themselves, and the other one was a mother drove a child there also, and the child ended up dying. So I don't think that should be put on our county to pay for the autopsy if they're transported by a personal vehicle, because I don't know where the incident occurred. So, and Britt and I have been working with Tippecanoe County on that, and we haven't heard anything back from them yet, because I don't think we should have to pay for something like that. But the good news is, I've spoke with our representatives, both Brian Buchanan and Heath Van Etter, and they are willing to help me get this modified, the statute modified, and hopefully get some of this gray area taken care of. So that's going to be worked on this year. So hopefully we'll get something accomplished.
When you have a
with that.
dispute like that between coroner services, who's the arbiter? Who makes the call on, ultimately, if Tippecanoe County and Clinton County have differing opinions on who pays that bill, who makes that call?
I put my rebuttal, and Carrie puts her rebuttal. It ultimately comes to the auditors, I guess. So,
That doesn't seem
I know.
like it's right,
My
but,
suggestion to the Tippecanoe auditor was we just do 50/50.
and
Gray area.
yeah, I sent emails back and forth to the commissioners about it, and they're like, no, we shouldn't have to pay for that. But then it's like, well, let's get this taken care of.
yeah,
And we'll do
that's interesting.
50/50. But my autopsy budget right now, there's only like $2,932 in there right now, and I have at least probably 2 I have to turn in, so I'll probably be coming back to the next council meeting to ask for an additional appropriation to be able to.
Well, and we've always said that
Oh, yeah.
about autopsies, so. I mean,
Absolutely.
we have no control over what that number is, so,
Absolutely.
okay.
And the coroner training, that's remained the same. And then you'll see a new capital outlay for a new mortuary cot. The one we have is probably about 10-plus years old. I mean, it still functions fine, but it would be so nice to have 2 cots in the back of that vehicle. I know Councilman Myers and I have spoke before about maybe getting one of the auto load ones. I priced them things out.
Sorry. That was me, sorry.
I mean, that's not practical for our application. If we had,
Yeah, usually about
That's the
6
project,
o'clock,
and
it
somebody
usually
gets hacked,
says
or
time
just
to
to
get
have
up.
somebody say it, but then say 5 minutes.
Of course, I usually have a cup of coffee before I go to bed every night.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
Now, that's something I've never done. I could. It probably wouldn't bother me. Because coffee doesn't keep me awake.
I could drink a whole pot.
Hell, I could take a nap right now and I've had a whole pot of coffee.
Been done with this since it came on in 2007, it's still not.
No, it don't bother me. Coffee don't keep me awake at all.
So we'll see.
Did you get it? Oh, that was when I was hitting the, yeah. Brett, we're gonna have to keep that on because we're broadcasting, so,
I didn't realize that, and I was just trying to do it, so.
yeah, I'm sorry. I have to be more careful, so.
Spread over into Jeff's spot.
Yeah, I did, I kinda have been.
And I didn't realize that, or I wouldn't have shut it off.
I got ran out of Lebanon many times when I was in high school, you know, at that time.
I was going to tell her, wait, come back and talk to us
Going on
about
around
all
here.
this factual information we can.
Ray? Yeah. I do think it's gonna be bigger
You're
than.
right, you've been dealt with it when I first went to the sheriff's office. And that's 29 years ago.
It never goes away, does it?
No, it doesn't. But who knows, they'll use the cloud tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's what worries me about investing anything in microfilm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, everybody ready? We'll, Rick, I think we're ready. So we'll reconvene and we're gonna look at highway.
That's all right.
And I don't think we've got anything really that we need to change, but except one,
Fuel,
got one thing. And
fuel.
And I reached out to Joe actually yesterday, and I've alluded a couple of times to the contracts that the commissioners signed, and I really think that was a really good decision. We were able to lock in our fuel at a, what looks like a pretty attractive price, and maybe even more importantly, it's at a predictable price. We can budget for it because the gallons are contracted. But the one place that got hit negatively was we didn't have enough, enough money in the highway budget. We put, if you look in that budget, and I'm not sure, can't remember which one it is. It's in the motor vehicle highway, general and undistributed. 020014. We have 300,000 in there. The contract totals are 477,000. We just use a lot of fuel. Now, that's sort of contracting for a worst case scenario because we have no idea how the winter's gonna go and how many, times you gotta go out in ice or blizzards or whatever. But that is what we've contracted. So, Rick, I'll leave it to you. My assumption is, and Joe thought the same thing, is that we'll just come back and additional appropriate in 2023. You don't wanna change anything in here,
No.
do you? Okay.
No.
And talking to her, there may be a little bit of flexibility if we wait. We don't even have to do that one, Brett, in January, because if we wait till April, we kind of know how the winter was. So, but just to let you all know that that's the way the contract worked out and where we ended up on the highway fuel budget. So let's hope that goes down for 2024. Anything else while we've got Rick here? My recollection from the highway budgets is they were very well done and straightforward. Did anybody have any notes or Rick, anything that's changed or that you want to bring up to the council that's occurred since? Oh, the only other thing, I guess I'll refresh memories, was we had moved those 3 people from bridge to the MVH fund.
We got 5 bridges in the works right now.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't have anything else other than just to kind of make sure that everybody was on the same page with, and be completely transparent on the fuel. And there's several budgets there. Wheel tax, local road and street, bridge, Questions on any of those? I see some of you still flipping pages. Any? Well, Rick, I know you're on vacation this week, and thank you for taking a couple of minutes to come in here and be available. And
It's fine.
I feel bad that I made you do that, but
No, it's fine.
I'm glad we got to all hear the same information. So if there's no questions for Rick, I'll let him get back to his vacation.
Rick's done an excellent job on this budget.
Yeah, good budget. Good budget.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Beth is with us for the recorder and the perpetuation budget. Uh, 18. Oh, dude. Okay, two budgets, the regular county general recorder's budget and Beth's perpetuation budget. Let's start with the regular recorder's budget. I didn't have anything that was a existing line item that I had any notes about, but Beth had made a point of bringing up the position, the salary for the recorder's position and wanting to see if that could get more in alignment with the treasurer. And I had in my notes you had asked for 1,000 or 2. Is that fair to say? A good
Yes.
summary?
Yes.
And I do feel like we should address that directly. I've just looked back at the treasurer's salary. The treasurer for 2023 is $4,000 more than the recorder. So we have gotten a little bit of a separation here. We do not have a salary study this year, so it is all on the council. We don't have any resources to look at. I expect that we'll have a more full salary survey for next year with Wagner Irwin conducting one that's probably even more in-depth than we've had in a long time. So one course of action would be to punt and wait till we have that information. But on the other hand, you know, the numbers tell a story, and we've gotten some separation there that
In the past, how much is,
Well, I
has the
didn't-
treasurer and the recorder been pretty close? I don't have any history.
I don't know, but I guess to some degree, the duties of a department head are consistent across,
Yeah,
you know.
and Beth's kind of low man on the totem pole, I think.
Yeah, I was just kind of comparing about like number of employees and, you know, and the only thing, I do have a 2020 wage survey, that was done. And at that time, they did the comparison with the other counties that are similar to us. I had 4 recorders in that study that were making more than me and 6 that were under. So I was in, you know, so, and I don't know if the percentage on that percent to average, but I'm 101 and like the treasurer was 109. I didn't know, I thought that might show that.
Yes.
Commissioners have looked at that discrepancy just a little bit, and we would recommend to the council that it gets closer to where it should be, which would, in my opinion, or our opinion, $2,000 would not be out of range.
And you know, that was my gut feeling as well. We've adjusted a couple of other positions in other departments. It feels like this was one that had similar logic and made some sense. It would require, Beth, unless we had an offsetting cut somewhere in the budget, that we'd have to do an additional appropriation in January to make that happen. So I would defer to your judgment as to whether there's any room to cut anything. You just don't have a lot to cut. I mean, it's a pretty slim budget.
Well, I'm glad to hear the commissioners have talked about this. That helps me make a decision, having different eyes on this. I would support the $2,000 either way, whether comes out of something else here, or we do an
I
additional.
just don't think there's anywhere to take it.
And I think additional would be probably better.
So with that being said, I'd like to have for the record a motion
I would make that motion.
to make it 2,000?
Yes.
For a $2,000 additional adjustment upward in the recorder's salary to get it more balanced with other department heads. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. So we will make that change in the book. Bert, thank you for sharing that. I didn't know
Yes.
that. So let's flip then to the perpetuation fund. We did make a couple of adjustments in August, so I just want to review those. The digitization of documents, because we did the $26,000 earlier today for 2022, we lowered, actually, I have in my book 45,000 for 2023. Is that what you guys have? Is that what you had, Beth? 45?
Yes,
Okay, and then we had
we just moved.
moved 10,000 from the scanner to the office equipment line. That was the two things we did.
And Janet helped me make sure I knew, because you could remember everything. So it lowered that budget $30,000
Correct.
then.
Yes.
So you did an appropriation already today?
For the 2022, at the
Okay.
regular meeting, we did the
For the-
26,000.
Okay, for your end of it?
No, for your part to get
Okay.
started with.
Okay. I got the invoice Friday at 17,338, so I'll have to find out.
Oh, maybe we got a discount.
Yeah, I don't know. They said our film was in very good shape. It wasn't bowed or bent, and so that made it go quicker, so we'll see.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, that would be nice.
No news.
In a way, I don't want to ask them because,
Oh, we made a mistake.
yeah, I'll just pay it and forget it. So,
45. So that leaves, and Beth references the county, we've got this deal to do half of it. And this was the other item that I would suggest we take out of cume cap. And so it would require an additional appropriation. But that's the place where we've got some cash balance that we could do that. Does everybody feel comfortable with that?
What's our part gonna be then?
Well, so we've done 26 for Beth today. For 22, we've got 45 in the budget, which is 71, and we need to match that.
We need to match 71.
Yeah. So, Brett, I'll have you put that on our list. I guess I want to, again, to be consistent, let's have a motion on the record that would be that we will fund our half of that scanning contract, which is $71,000 out of cume cap, to be additional appropriated in January.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Mike. Do I have a second? Second by Jake. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Carries 6-0.
Now, that doesn't change anything in her
Nope,
budget?
nope,
though.
nope.
That's-
But that was sort of a
that's-
loose end that we had
Yeah,
to
that'll
come up with
go.
the funding for the remainder of that contract.
And what's that gonna come out of, Kim?
Cume cap.
Yeah.
So I don't have any other notes or loose ends. Anybody else have a question about either budget? Oops, and we got identity security protection budget, but that was a very straightforward, just redaction services.
Okay.
Oh, we do have the special digitizing project. Now, is that different than, there's 24,000 in that identification security?
that is to have CSI, our programming company, run all of those digitized records through a redaction
Oh, the
program
gotcha. Yeah,
to
yeah,
make
yeah.
sure there are no, and that they will take out all social security numbers. And there'll be some in those.
Okay,
They used to write them on POAs, mortgages. Yeah, they used to have them all in there. So
okay,
then we'll be protected that way.
great. I think that covers us.
And they got us the first stage 2 to put into our system, not to be released yet, but to start looking at that and going over it and making sure things are all right.
Okay,
So,
all right.
thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you. Okay. If you're keeping track on your agenda here, I just want to say, I don't think we need to review airport and the waste district again. We went through all those in pretty good detail in August, and there's been no changes, so really, we're getting down to it here. If you want to mark those other ones off. We've got Stephen with us, so we'll look at EMS next.
I've asked, Commissioner Ewens and Sharon Kelly to come back at 11.
Okay. Okay, that'll work out. EMS is tab number 10. We went through this budget and I didn't have a whole lot of notes, in part because Stephen and I had met, multiple times prior to the August budget meeting, but do you have some additional things for us to consider or know about?
There are more questions.
Okay.
So I'll apologize in advance if this is an ignorant question, but the gas and lube.
Yep.
Okay,
I'll bring it up, or
What?
I've got the contract.
Me too. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
So when I'm looking at it, is the contract is for 75,611. I've got it budgeted for 985. When I'm looking at how much fuel we've used, so the most recent update I had was 628, and we had used 41% of our fuel budget.
Okay.
And I mean, we were significantly under as of that day, we had 5,500 remaining for gas and 6,300 remaining for diesel.
Okay.
So I feel like there's a lot of wiggle room in there. And so I was just wondering, do you want to just leave it? Do you want us to try and tighten that up a little bit? Or what your guys' thoughts are?
Your budget is a little bit different in the sense that if you don't use it, it just reverts back into your cash balance and nobody else is reaching in, trying to do it. It doesn't hurt anything for us to leave that number, but I had in my notes lowered it to 80.
Lower to 80?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if something changes and you end up using more and we have to bump it up, we either transfer or we additional, but based on the contract, we have 80's enough.
I agree.
So that was the only change that I actually had from August was to make.
Line 11.
Yes.
And then, so I know in the council meeting today, you mentioned the Trex program.
Yeah.
So, kind of looking at our year to date for Trex, it's been pretty disappointing on the EMS side. But yesterday I went through and I looked through all of the reports for our Acumed billing and how much we have outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
We have $630-some thousand outstanding in billables. And 638,000 is, yeah. And so that's dating back to reports from 2020. So really, collections wise, I would say narrow that down to, but we probably still have several $100,000 on the table. Acumed, our billing company, they bill it to Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the other private insurance companies, but they don't collect.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not chasing people down saying, hey, have you updated your insurance? Have you paid your bill, et cetera? There's no penalty except the Trex program right now for if people aren't billing or paying their bills. So what is the council's thought on us reaching out to a collections agency and try to gather some additional through that?
I think that was tried one time prior. Do you remember, Bert? That might have been.
That was during our time.
Yeah.
We did collect $100,000 or so. So if I remember right, they collected 35% and we received the others.
It's something like that, yeah. I have no objection to that at all.
I don't.
Okay.
I'm surprised it's that much outstanding. I didn't think it was dropped. I thought we should still be going after that, so that's.
My recollection was, and you kind of alluded to it, I think we just paid out of what we didn't have to advance any money,
Right.
it was only based on what they collected. So
Yeah.
I'd want it to try to be like that if you could. I wouldn't want to have to add necessarily a line item to the budget.
Right. Okay.
We may have to in the sense that the money's gonna come in and we'll have to appropriate it to that line item to go out, but at least at that point, we've got the money to cover it.
Okay.
Wouldn't there be, I'm not that familiar with collections agency, but I know time is of an essence on collecting anything. The older your bill is, the harder it gets. So, I'm I think it's great that you get a hold of somebody, but then maybe look at a long-term relationship.
Okay.
So it's ongoing.
So it's ongoing, so you have, you keep it on this table for so long, and then you have policy, whatever that may be, and then it goes to collections.
Would,
I didn't realize we were not doing that. I think that's a good hit. Companies can go back 7 years to collect something, so, collection companies have the ability to, make a letter, make recommendations to the people, in fact, threaten suits, small claims, whatever it may be.
would there need to be kind of a special level of knowledge if part of it could be as simple as we didn't catch a change in insurance or does the collection agency have to have some sort of comfort level with medical billing and that kind of thing?
Yeah, the company, I actually heard back from them this morning. We're scheduling a meeting to discuss. They're based out of Indianapolis, and they actually represent quite a few county-based EMS services.
Okay.
Oh, well, there you go.
So I think that's going to be a good resource, kind of have a conversation with them and see where it goes. But before I went into that, I kind of wanted to
Yeah,
get
no,
your guys'
I
thoughts.
think
and-
you'd have the council's full support.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, just 20% of that 638,000 is, I know, we're here to, not necessarily worry too much about the financial application of it, but with what our revenue expectations are and with the new county tax, I think, covering 20% really brings us really close to net neutral.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is a benefit in going forward with it, but obviously I wanted your guys' input and Bert's input as well, so.
Any update or change in the plans for the paramedic training and the course offering? I mean, when you and I met, we had a number on the revenue side for that. Does that still look to be on track?
Yeah, I think the revenue's still on track. I'll say, we continue to fight the uphill battle. So right now we have contracts for clinical agreements with IU Frankfurt, IU Arnett, St. Vincent Kokomo, and St. Vincent Indianapolis. So the legal teams between IU Arnett and IU Frankfurt are currently reviewing them. And we've gotten the contract to the right hands, but they haven't progressed since then for St. Vincent.
Okay.
So we're trying to get those programs on board with us, and then we'll be able to have students go to their facilities for clinicals, which is a requirement by COAMPS. And then Dolores and I fly out to Denver the first week of October for the accreditation workshop, which is required by the National Accreditation Program.
Okay.
So we're still working on it.
Okay, good.
I think January is probably not going to be
Aggressive.
the start date. But yeah, we're still working on it and still have high hopes that we can pull this off. So,
Okay, that's good. Great. Let us know if we can help.
okay, thank you. And then the ambulance lease, just wanted to throw this out there. This is looking to the future, not changing for this year.
Okay.
But we have our name on 2 ambulances for 2024 and 2025. So right now we're seeing anywhere from a 2 to 3 year delay from when we request an ambulance. So just want to kind of throw that out there that we are looking into the future at securing additional ambulances kind of on the same lease program that we have been doing.
Okay. Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Well,
good.
new
I'm
combine,
glad
you
you're
gotta wait.
thinking ahead.
Get a new combine, you gotta wait 3 or 4 years to get one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's all that I have. Is there anything else that you guys have for me?
Steve and I'm gonna apologize right up front. I may be throwing you under the bus, but I think everybody in here's a friend, so I don't think it matters. But I've gone through the junction at 28 and 29 a few times, and sometimes there's no cars in the parking lot. It appears that there's no one there. Are my suspicions well-founded or not?
So I don't view it as a bus. So I want to say that we have struggled. We had 2 employees resign at the beginning of August, both EMTs, one for personal reasons and one they were going to nursing school. And then the month of August has been an absolute nightmare in terms of illness. I think we've had 3 or 4 staff members out with COVID. We had a paramedic in a hospital for a week,
Wow.
and then we also had 2 medics take vacation. So it was a horrible month in terms of staffing. But I ran an analysis at the end of July, And what I saw was that we were in service with a paramedic and an EMT for 89.6% of the time out at Boylston. And then overall, it was 212 out of 217 days, if I am recalling off the top of my head correctly. But I will say in August, we had 8 days where that station was out of service. I just spoke with the trustee of Forest yesterday about this, actually. And, if you guys have a difference in opinion, please let me know. But playing the odds of where we are most likely to have a 911 call is where we have prioritized our ambulances to be staffed. So Frankfort is by far our highest chance of getting a 911 call, and then Mulberry is just higher than that of Boylston. So when we've had staffing issues, call-offs, what we've done is we've been marking Medic 4 out of service first, which is the truck out in Boylston, and then prioritizing the other 3 trucks. And when I say prioritize, I want to emphasize it's not prioritizing one part of the community over another. We're just trying to make sure that we can respond to the area that has the highest likelihood of a call coming out. So if you guys want a operation change, I am more than willing to entertain it, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
I'm really glad I asked though, because now everybody in this room can be your advocate. That you know what you're doing, and it's in everybody's best interest.
Thank you. Yeah, and I will say we've hired 2 new EMTs, so we're fully staffed again on the EMT side. That fills, we just had 1 start today actually on orientation, and then the next person comes the beginning of October, the first week of October. And then I actually had a paramedic stop in yesterday for an application. He said he'll drop it off tomorrow. We'll go through the interview process, see if he's a good fit for our team or not. And then another one reached out to me 2 days ago with interest as well. So I think we're starting to close those gaps on staffing, and I can't imagine that we have 5 paramedics out in 1 month again with COVID. And yeah, what a mess. So
Hey, that's management.
yeah.
That's the tough, it's tough at the top, yeah, when you gotta make those calls, so.
That's a
I appreciate
great
the explanation, yeah.
Great
Yeah.
explanation.
I think Stephen's done a great job in the balancing act, and as we all know, it's everywhere. It's not just in our EMS staff, it's anywhere you go. They have our staffing problems, and with the illnesses that he's had, he's gotta play the numbers. You hate to say that, but, he has prioritized where the odds are, and done a great job in doing that. It's hard to balance when you got 3 or 4 people out.
Yeah.
And sometimes the good news is there's other backups in that area anyway, and they've always done a good job. So I think Stephen's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will say, speaking of the backups, Ambulance 13 has been phenomenal. In the month of August, they made 27 calls. So,
And that's out of where?
Forest.
Forest, okay.
Yep. So they just started at the beginning of August, and they've already made 27 calls. I was blown away to see that, so.
Good.
What?
I just got the bill to pay them.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It was kind of, I thought, Forrest, is this really legit?
Yeah, so they've really stepped up, and obviously they just got that ambulance, so there's a lot of excitement and eagerness on board, which I hope never fades, but, we'll see how it
Yeah,
plays
good,
out.
that's
So
great.
They've done great, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Any questions for Stephen? Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we should have our last couple of budgets here on the way.
John just said he's on his way.
Okay. We had the surveyor on the list, but I personally told Dan he didn't have to be here, so I'll take the blame on that one. The only thing that I was thinking there was I wanted to be clear and on the record about the surveyor's vehicle. In the landfill budget, we have a vehicle listed, and that is intended to be for the surveyor, so if you want to make a note in your book that that's the surveyor vehicle. The cost of a truck like Dan would get would go beyond what we have in that budget, and so Dan has committed to pay for the remaining amount out of his user fee fund, and that was the only thing, I guess I just wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page, but other than that, there were no issues with his budgets or
So
adjustments, but Dan and I have had that conversation multiple times, so I know we're on the same page.
It's in the,
Landfill,
Landfill.
it's the last item, I think.
0007.
Isn't it?
no. I see,
I just saw it.
It says corner, well,
That-
vehicle down here at the very
On
bottom.
the first page, it's very bottom.
oh, first,
For 30.
oh, okay. So it's, server road.
So that was really the only item.
Okay.
So let's see, let me make that note real quick. That's 8.
So has the surveyor ordered, the vehicle?
I do not know that yet. He may have been waiting until it was officially approved. So that's surveyor.
Well, I imagine he's watching this, so.
Yeah, Dan, if you're watching and want to weigh in on that question of whether you've ordered the vehicle or not, let us know. Okay, sheriff's budget. Let me get to the right spot.
19.
Tab 19. One of these tabs that has a lot of budgets in it. We had we did talk about Stevens Fuel, so he was a good one. His budget number actually got to come down. We had Rick's number we had to raise, and we've got a similar situation based on the contract amount in the sheriff's budget, so we can start with that maybe. I've got the contracts here in front of me. The total for the sheriff's gas, oil, and lube contracts was $221,000, and we have $180,000 in the budget. I don't know that we have places to offset. I identified a couple of places that I emailed to Ashley yesterday. And I can't remember one of them you didn't want to mess with, but I don't remember. Okay. The others that I had suggested we could take down 5,000 each were the garage supplies, which is 020013, and repair vehicles. I understand it's a crapshoot. You don't know what's going to break and how expensive it'll be, but my hope was that with the newer fleet, that we could take the repairs down to 5,000 to 20. So that would get, in this instance, if we did that we could raise that fuel number in this budget to 190,000. And then I think, I don't have any other way around it. I think we're gonna have to go to that public safety lit and put a new line item in for fuel. Unless somebody else has a different idea.
Go over those reductions one more time.
Yeah, I think we,
Okay, so 020013, other garage supplies, I took it from 20 to 15. And then the repair of vehicles, 030059, I took from 25 to 20. And then added that 10,000 to the fuel line to make it 190. So we'd still need 30,000 that I would suggest we put in the public safety lit. And listed as CCSO fuel.
you want an additional that?
Yeah, we'll have to, yeah,
On a public safety list.
yeah.
1170.
Yes. Okay, so that kind of takes care of the fuel issue. In that first budget, which is the regular county general sheriff's budget, I didn't really have anything else highlighted. Did anybody have anything they wanted to question or discuss?
we have that one detective increase that's more than 10%, 01, 003.
Yeah, you want to, Ashley, you want to just run through that real quick again and refresh our memory, our sheriff?
Basically, when the detectives are paid the same as what our road merit deputies are, there's no incentive to become a detective. And that's probably one of the primary reasons for the increase. And then the detectives are responsible for a lot of personal things. Major scenes, personnel directing and coordinating the tasks. They're responsible for all major crimes in the county. You can go back into the news over the last week and see where, we were able to assist in the conviction of a person for 102 years for child crimes. So the name and the face of our detective, they put a lot of effort and a lot of time into those investigations. They're on call for a third of the year, and they respond to all deaths in the county, whether, for the most part, or even until we find or see that it's a natural death. So they're spending a lot of time on call, and the third has changed because now we have an opening as a detective because we had one person resign and take on a private industry job. So, those are the things that, that drive us to ask for that difference in pay. They're oftentimes called after hours and respond, accordingly. The times that the victims who reach out are all hours of the day. So they're, honestly, they're doing work that they should be being compensated for than when they're not, especially when it comes to responding to victims' emails, things like that, phone calls, and, the continuation of investigations. They're required to be certified in a lot of challenging areas, in which forensics and polygraphs and different case management type work. They hold a higher standard than what the merit deputy does because of the responsibility of continuing these investigations and getting the convictions and assisting the prosecutor's office. Most of the time, their work, is never done at a 8 to 5 or 8:30 to 5 o'clock. They're on call almost all the time. They're answering phone calls, and they're responsible to respond. And they also spend a lot of time out of the area with training and taking on these extra duties that they have to do. And most of it is now, mostly it's computer, it's forensic, it's all the electronic devices that, people have nowadays. We've had to step up to the plate. You can see that in the expenditures that we've had over the last 2 years have truly been to put these folks into this century, into the technology that's required. And with that, it does take extra training. So, the standard for the detective is a lot higher than it was possibly when, Sheriff Hensley was there. Mm-hmm. So, the requirements are there, and to close these cases, and it takes an extended amount of time to get that done. But it's a responsibility, and these guys taking the time to be there. So I think, to have that ability to have a step up from a merit deputy and basically consider that detective position as really, truly a promotion.
Make sure I'm clear, the one in this budget, it's an existing detective position, we're adjusting the salary only. In the public safety budget, we're changing a merit deputy to detective, correct? We take it from 9 to 8 and changed.
And that's the position that's currently
Okay.
open for the resignation.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood. So this affects two different budgets. We have the detectives the deputies that we pay out of the public safety, that we were going to change the job title on one of those from deputy to detective.
So your regular detective gets the same pay as regular deputy?
Currently, detectives are paid the same as deputies.
And we would like
They
to
have
change
been
that.
as long as we.
Yeah, and, that's for the reason of the responsibility that's been put on them, increasing that pay for a detective, it gives, number one, the incentive to become a detective. A lot of people will not step up to the plate for more work at the same thing.
Right.
And, and it is different, and they do, they get a clothing allowance, but, they gotta maintain a Class A uniform, and Sheriff Hensley understand that, but they also, and so will Joe, but they also have to maintain proper attire for court, proper, and that's suit and tie, and, you know, and that's the difference in, you know, being a detective is that, you know, he's taking a hit or she's taking a hit because she's gotta maintain both uniforms. You know, things like that, but the responsibility that the detectives have taken on in the last 4 years have been tremendous. And, you know, and the outcome is, just like I said, we're getting convictions and we're getting cases closed a lot faster. We're asking them to work with Frankfurt City, the state police, and other agencies that need our help in the forensic end of investigations.
We're also working with federal agencies now. We've hooked into ICAC, which
ICAC.
are cyber crimes, you know, for child crimes. That's assigned to our detectives. They've taken on a great.
They've taken on a lot of responsibility. ICAC, they do, and they're a part of a team that will help Howard County, Boone County, Clinton County, Carroll County with different child crimes. And, you know, and the sad thing is that spreads over borders. It's not just Clinton County. This information has been shared from other counties. So, and that's part of ICAC and assisting with these other agencies. And it's basically ICAC's ran by the state police. And we sign on that we're able to help. We do get some extra funding from that group, but it also, you know, it's a lot of responsibility.
Okay. Any other questions on the Maine Sheriff's Department budget?
No, thank you for the thorough explanation.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, you know, it's one thing that we, you know, we see our county is gonna grow. We know the things that are happening now, but every day the world becomes smaller and smaller. And that's because of internet, that's because of these electronic devices. We've taken on a responsibility of being able to, you know, purchase and do the investigations properly, but we've had our detectives, Clinton County, they have been able to pass on investigations to our federal government that have occurred in other states and other areas, other parts of this state, but our people are closing those cases for the most part and providing all of that information that we gather off of these cell phones. So it's more of a, you know, that's why I say the world is small, because, you know, we're getting that, the child pornography, things like that are being shared into this community, and we're able to share that information back out and help the federal agencies with their investigations.
This
Makes a
week,
huge
we're passing a case off to Homeland Security, probably next week. It's
So-
doing big things right now.
Good.
It's fantastic. I mean, you know, and it says a lot, and it's not something that, you know, you can put out there on your daily information, but to know that, you know, Clinton County is a part of the larger investigations and able to provide that, it's been amazing. It's a great job by our people there at the Sheriff's Office.
If no one has any other questions, let's move on to the jail budget. The jail budget was very tight, very close to year over year. The only thing that I have highlighted, and it's just a kind of a convenience to protect the general fund a little bit, I think we have enough room that we could move the building maintenance line, the 030051, to the corrections lit. Because we actually don't even have budgeted all of the entire amount of next year's anticipated lit revenue. So that,
I expressed some concern with Brett that line item, because of the multiple repairs that had happened at the jail with the overhead door and the plumbing and all that, we were out of that line
Okay.
in June and July. And now we are using out of 1233, that 50,000 HVAC line, in lieu of the 0051 out of jail. To keep our maintenance going without additional appropriation. Terry inferred that the HVAC in 1233 wasn't gonna be done this year. So that's where we tapped in for building.
is that because of the bigger boiler and chiller thing? Okay. So I have no objection to, if, could that just be 100,000 for jail repairs in the 1233?
Whatever you want it to be, I'm just letting you know we're out of money.
Well, so the 50 for the HVAC's in the budget already. I mean, it's sort of in the baseline.
It was for this year.
Right.
But it was taken out for next year.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Jubilee.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. I see that now.
It was a 1233, and I'm pretty sure he said we wouldn't need it. Yeah, it's not in there.
We still have room.
I'm not about, if you wanna jump it over, I'm not about that. You just tell me what amount.
So, with the garage door and those things you reference, do we dare say those were one-time or one-offs, or do we?
So the
is-
issue with the garage door was we waited several months and they sent the wrong door. So we currently have the wrong door. And we're waiting for the correct door to come in. And then the other one was our Sally port was the emergency repair. So, we paid for that, I believe, out of 380. That should be a one-time repair.
We're, and I don't have to say it, we're chasing our tails in that old facility.
And, yeah, I know.
We had a walk-in cooler, we replaced a freezer unit last year, and
The cooler went down 2 days after the generator issue. We've got that up and running now, but this morning we can run it up, we have 4 leaks down in
sewage, water.
We've built a cash balance in there because of the way the jailer turnover position, that there's a lot of weeks we don't pay the full amount of the salaries, and so that accumulates over time. So we've got enough room to do that. I have no objection or no problem with putting 100,000 in there for jail repairs. And in 1233, in the jail the correctional facilities lit. So Britt, that would be one to add to our list. I'm okay with 100,000. There's no cheap fixes over there in that building. Anything we get.
You want that in the repairs line?
Yes, the 030001
And then taking the 50,000 out?
out of the jail budget. And that helps protect county general, which is the one that we have to think more about.
So is that gonna have to be an additional?
Yes.
Are you doing all those forever?
Nope, you don't have to do it.
So we're taking the 50,000 out of the general.
Correct. And that was, I didn't have anything else even highlighted in the jail budget.
I want to make sure on the jail budget, the jail clerk 0027, I know I talked briefly about that, the increase of that one on a PhD parameters of the grant, so we lost the adult education
Oh,
funding.
yes.
I just want to make sure that that's not reduced to 10%, because that is going to be reduced to 10%.
Now, I do remember that now that you say that.
The adult education program under a job description.
You got it?
What was
010027
In the, which budget?
in the jail, the regular county general jail budget. Yeah, the 380 budget there at the top. Basically, the county would be agreeing to take on what was formerly grant funded, so that we didn't have to give up the service.
Still not finding it. General, jail?
Yeah.
380.
You're on the wrong page, I think. Go flip back a page. 27.
Oh, okay.
You already had the note there.
That's going up to what?
Well, it's just, she's asking that it stay at what it was requested, rather than
Okay.
cutting it back to just a 10%. So it doesn't require any action.
Okay.
It was just an explanation.
Okay.
So let's move then to the lit public safety, which is where we have those deputies that I referenced a moment ago. Brett, you'll want to make sure on our list, we need to take 010017 down from 9 to 8. And then we need to create a new line for the one detective at the 64,599. So that'll have to be, well, really, I guess the only thing that has to be additional is the difference. Yes.
The difference with that is $2,713 if there was a way to take that out.
Okay.
Question mark about event over.
Yeah, could we,
Well, now what I've advertised in that line was the 556,974,
mhm.
and we took it down.
Well, that's what she's saying. So we put it back in, but we're gonna have the new one that we're putting in is the 2713 higher. Can we, we've never come close to using the 9,000 on special events overtime. Can we take that down
That,
and?
or I would say the same applies with the jail officers or courthouse security. Actually, no.
I don't really wanna, I hate,
Yeah, special events overtime.
can we take that?
Is it overestimated though, Fred? Was the detective line included in the announcement? Because then it should be a salary too much.
We did 9 at the deputy salary, so if we change one of those to detective, we just have to accommodate for that difference. So, yeah, we could make that real easy and we could do the change right now if we could offset that increase by reducing something else. So if we could reduce special event overtime by 3,000, we'd be there. Is that okay? Can you? Yeah, I'll take it to 6.
Do you know where it's at currently?
For all of 2021, we did 3672, so. Actually, what I'm thinking is what I'm thinking is though, is that then you could transfer from a salary position that wasn't filled the whole time or whatever next year. You know, because we'd only be talking about 1,000 or 2 maybe. Okay. Then flip the page to the Lit Correctional Facility. We just were there a minute ago with repairs and maintenance, but to review the remaining light items, that's where we have our jailers, jail supervisors, transport officers, commander and assistant commander. You know, all those are what they are, so. Not really anything there to look at. Then that leads us to the federal inmate housing, the last in the tab. Again, we have some jailers and deputies. And I don't think those positions are all filled currently, but we have to budget for the full year. There was a new item for specialty pay that we discussed for credentialed certifications that Jake can speak to maybe, but people that go above and beyond to get special training. We've got the benefits, Social Security, retirement monies associated with those positions are in there. We move.
How is specialty pay paid out? Specialty pay is, we have a list of different specialties. You can earn $500 per specialty, and we cap it through specialty. So they would be, basically a one-time stipend, for the year. They require additional certification. Okay, I just wondered. 500 per special, cap it at 3, so 1,500 max. Do you pay that for time or? We can, that was. Or just how the training is? It's a good recruitment tool, there's a lot of agencies that recruitment, because we don't have longevity pay. This was kind of my give to them for not being able to have.
So it's similar to what the police department does. Training and certifications, it's not required of an officer, but it's one that's, you know, that if they do maintain the certification, it just benefits the department.
Gives them a little incentive.
Right, saves money, you know,
Slot
like
person,
instructors, for example.
instructors.
You don't have to send an officer out to, you know, a $400 school when you've got an instructor that can instruct it within. So.
The and the reason
And
for,
they're subject to call-outs usually, like drone pilots.
some of the reasoning behind, the specialty pay and where we're gonna take it from has been, we have such a hard time getting into the law enforcement academy. Now things just like, you don't get things shipped from out of country at a reasonable rate anymore or time frame. It's getting people trained and certified. So the law enforcement academy is backed up as everybody else is when it comes to classes and people that are eligible for training, things like that. So to keep and maintain those officers as crash reconstructionists, drone pilots, things like that, we need to give an incentive. And we have the ability to do that. We need to do that so that they are, it's a very nice thank you to them for maintaining those certifications. From our drones to our reconstructionists to our SWAT people, it does make a huge difference. It helps in the recruitment process. We are at 27 applicants for 5 positions, which I'm pretty happy about. Because I've seen the application processes that other agencies have ran throughout the state and across the country, and that applicant pool is 70% down. And I think, Councilman Myers can agree to that when we open a position, we have to be able to say these things. We have to be able to compete with other large agencies, or other agencies that are larger than us, to be able to say we give incentive pay, we have insurance packages, we have, the different benefits, the holidays, things like that, because that's what more people are looking at today, are those things rather than a salary. And our community's fantastic. We have a great community to work in. So, all of those things help us keep and recruit and maintain these people.
Example of that is crash reconstruction would be a part of the specialty pay. We have one individual who just went through 6 weeks. The training was free for us because it was a grant from the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute. But that's a specialty that they're going to be.
And the flip side of that is, these folks that are crash reconstructionists, probably the minimum pay out in the private sector is $170 an hour plus. So we're keeping them here at a salary that's well below what they can make in a private industry setting. And, and those are the things that we have to caution against. And, that we do everything we can to provide these incentives, that we provide them a work environment where they're growing and where they're accomplishing. So, that's the sheriff's office, is to maintain our employees.
That specialty pay, if they fail to maintain that, do you take that away?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, it's contingent on their continued, certifications. And, we'll have that every once in a while. Crash Reconstruction School is probably the most intense school that we can ask them to go to, because it is a lot. It's a lot of math, it's a lot of different things.
And we've had that conversation on maybe pay it out at the end of the year, or that they maintain throughout the entire year, so.
Their certifications, call-outs.
When does the PD pay those?
Usually at the end of the year. It's just basically the one-time stipend at the end of the year, instead of just having to do it every check. Yeah. Sorry?
Do they 1099?
No, it's just W-2. Yeah.
Oh, it's on the W-2.
It's done through payroll, but not
26 pays.
26 pays. It's just paid at the end of the year as that one time.
So I bring that up because that's, I think, the only brand new item in that budget. Everything else was in there last year, including the body camera payment. You recall, we did that payment over time. We'd moved those sheriff service agreements from the general fund to this fund. And we, of course, got the cars, the automobiles down there. And we had originally had a 3-year plan, of which 23 would be the 3rd year. So, and I sent an email to Ashley yesterday, and my main concern was more on the revenue side. When I looked at the numbers, we'd been trending lower by about $16,000 a month, and so I was a little nervous about, we've got a cash balance, but we were gonna dip into it pretty good if we spent this whole budget out, which is debatable about whether we would if the positions were filled for 52 weeks. But I did think we probably, the swing dollars in there are their automobiles, and I wondered whether we really needed to keep the whole 400,000 in there if if the revenues were gonna be down. And I don't know, I guess my first question is why are the revenues down and do we expect that to bounce back up?
Revenues can be bounced back up. I held off on filling those positions, given what.
Filling the beds?
Yes. So we've contacted we're gonna bring those numbers up. We're gonna, bring them back to where we were hopefully gonna stay at.
I don't see the logic behind reducing them though.
If I have to move them out, I'm not gonna move them in.
So we'll continue the process and we'll get we've had conversations with your marshals and we'll get those positions filled, or those beds filled rather than positions. And we have the ability to, and we're in a process of, hiring, and that's part of it as well. We have to have the increased staff, to make sure that we have those proper people to maintain and watch over these folks while we're increasing those numbers again. And we're in a pretty good place right now with, the hiring process for the rest of the 8 that we agreed upon hiring.
So do we need another batch of vehicles?
Yes, we do.
We have 7